Glenn, lots to digest here. What's your take as the guy who's running a travel business and has been, your business has clearly been disrupted over the last 8 months?
Hi, Emily, and thank you for having me. And it certainly has been disruptive, but what wonderful news coming out of Pfizer and Moderna. And hopefully we'll hear a lot more good news coming out of the other companies, the other pharmas, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. Hopefully we'll have a whole bunch coming out. But the thing that I continue to remind our employees, as everybody's gotten very excited, I say, everyone remember, this is not like a light switch. It's not like we just turn on the lights and everything is now great. We have a long way to go between these announcements, and there hasn't even been governmental approval yet of these vaccines. And it's going to take an awful long time for the vaccines to be distributed and everybody to be taking these vaccinations, and then to be able to get to a level of safety that people feel that it's okay to do everything you used to do before this pandemic. So unfortunately, it's going to be some time.
So let's talk about what's happening in the short term. The CDC is recommending that folks not travel over the next week, Thanksgiving week. I just got off the phone with someone who's canceling a trip. Are you seeing bookings being canceled over the next several weeks? What's happening right now?
Well, we saw a significant downturn before the announcements that you just announced. We did our earnings call, and I talked about how the 7 days preceding the call that we just did, that all of a sudden our new bookings were dropping significantly, and our reported bookings were down 70% in the 7 days preceding our earnings announcement. And that's from a change. The summer wasn't bad at all. People were feeling pretty optimistic about things. But as the infection rates started going up, and not just in the US, it's even worse in Europe. We see those infection rates go up. We see bookings go down. We see cancellations go up. And that's what's been happening. And unfortunately, until people feel safe, we're not going to see a rebound.
So how will this holiday season compare to every other holiday season?
Well, it's going to be pretty horrible in terms of travel, and I think we all knew that. We talked back in April together, you and I, and we talked a little bit about how what we needed was a vaccine, and we needed also government stimulus. And now we've gotten, it looks like, hopefully, we've got some vaccines, though it has to be produced and then distributed. But we're also going to need governments to put some money to work to help prime the pump in travel. The travel industry has been so devastated. So many people have lost their jobs. We really need governments around the world to come up with plans and programs that as soon as it's safe to travel, to start putting money to work. And I'm thinking maybe tax credits to help stimulate demand, to get people traveling. Other countries are already doing that. In Japan, they're doing it, and we're working with them, and we're helping build domestic travel there. Thailand, same thing. And it'd be great if the people in the U.S. and the Congress and the administration right now and the President President-elect Biden, if they could all get together and come up with some plans, it'd be just really helpful so that when it's safe to travel, we get that demand up right away.
And we still don't know about additional stimulus. We do know that lawmakers are going home for Thanksgiving, but not whether or not there will be more stimulus. Do you think travel will ever get back to normal? If you think about all the kinds of travel, business travel, even after there's a vaccine, is your industry changed for good?
So a couple things about that. Look, there's always going to be travel when it's safe to travel. When everybody feels good about it, it's okay to get on a plane, we're going to get travel back. So I have absolutely no qualms about coming out and saying we will have more travel in the future than we did in the past, and we will go past 2019 numbers at some point in the future. But I think there are going to be some changes. And I think your point, you're mentioning business travel, I think business travel is going to be a bit different. I just don't see people saying that, okay, I'm going to get on a trip to visit a client, maybe, across the country or across the ocean for a one-day meeting at a very high expense and then come back and it's a whole day. I see people saying, I can do this by some sort of video communication and be just as effective doing that. And that really hurts the airlines that used to get those very, very high fares up front, those first class tickets, those business class tickets. That's a lot of money they used to get that I don't think they're going to get as much. And also the hotels, the five-star hotels that were being filled with business travelers who were, let's face it, a lot of times it was the client who was paying the way. I think that's also going to be impacted. So what that's going to do is going to change the economics for some of the suppliers in the travel industry. Now, ourselves at Booking.com, we're much more leisure oriented. So for us, it's not going to be much of an effect. In fact, it could even help us because there'll be a lot more empty rooms at hotels. And also, I think the airlines will be taking out some of those flatbed seats and turning them into coach seats, and we'll have more seats there to fill. So I think as a distributor, this type of thing can be actually improving our business.
Now, in the medium term, are you seeing any evidence that customers are encouraged by the vaccine news? Like, are you seeing tickets pick up for, say, a year from now? You know, right now I'm thinking I can't do the spring break trip that we planned for this year and thought maybe we could do next year. I mean, you know, is the news rippling down yet, or are travelers kind of paralyzed?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have seen people say, okay, I figure it's going to be safe in the summer, and I see some really great prices, so I'm going to go grab that right now while it's still there. Haven't seen that yet. And it's interesting because some of the things we saw earlier in the year, when a country would all of a sudden drop the restrictions, for example, there was a time when the UK had some travel restrictions. And then as it got into the early summer, where the UK said, okay, it's okay to travel internationally. And we saw almost instantaneously when the restrictions dropped, the bookings went up. I have not seen any effect like that from the announcements of these vaccines because I think people kind of are still thinking, well, we're not sure. When's it going to be safe? How long is it going to take? Am I going to be able to get a vaccine? And when will I be able to get it? So I think because there's so much uncertainty, people are still holding back.